What's up, guys? I know that some of you wanted to hear my testimony. So this is my story on how Jesus changed my life. I grew up in the church. My grandparents were faithful Christians. My mom was a faithful Christian and all that good stuff. So as I was growing up in the church, I just started knowing people weren't acting the way they were supposed to. So at an early age, I saw the hypocrisy in church. I saw on Sundays and Wednesdays, everybody was talking one way, and I would see them throughout town and they were acting a completely different way. And I started to get this bitterness in my heart towards the church, saying, you know what, if these people, why would I want to hang around fake people? You know, it didn't make sense. So I got real angry. I figured my mom's dragging me to church all the time now, and I just didn't want to be a part of it. And so at a very early age, about 12, 13, I started to rebel against the church, and I got just real angry at the church because not only did I grow up in the church, but I grew up in a broken family. So my mom was a single mom raising me. My dad wasn't in the picture at the time. So I just had this rejection issue that I was dealing with and anger issues that I was dealing with. And it didn't help seeing all the fake people at an early age. I ran from the church, and I ran hard and fast, and I went into straight rebellion mode. So in this life of rebellion, I went straight to drugs, started smoking weed at 12, and I was going to my friends' houses, and their older brothers were drinking, so we would drink with them, and I got into pornography really bad and just lived this life for years, partying and not really caring about anything. I didn't care about school. I dropped out of high school, and I just really didn't care about anything. I only wanted to erase this anger that I had. I wanted to erase the feeling of rejection, and nothing was doing it, but I just went harder and harder and harder into drugs, into pornography, into partying, into music, whatever it was. I was doing everything that I could in this lifestyle to forget how I grew up, and forget the anger that I had towards the church, and to forget the anger that I had towards my family, and just to forget everything. I wanted to run away from it all, and this is what I turned into. And eventually I got into the age where I would start questioning my spirituality and what I actually believed. And this took me down a dark path into an agnostic lifestyle and agnostic belief, to where I didn't believe anything existed, and if something did exist, I wasn't sure what that was, but I knew that my life was just trash, and I didn't know how to get away from it. So in this life, I found no answers to anything. I was chasing everything else. I was trying to find who I was through these things, and the only satisfaction I got in life was tearing other Christians down. So I studied philosophy, I studied all these people, and my goal in life at this point was to talk to Christians in a way that if they weren't founded and rooted in Jesus himself, that they would walk away from the conversation completely not knowing what they believed. And it was at this time that I was sleeping on couches. I didn't have a home. My car was broke. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any jobs. My mom had pretty much said, you know what? if this is the way you want to live, then you live it, but I cannot send you money. I cannot condone all that you're doing. So for 4 months, 5 months, I didn't have a home. I was sleeping on couches, you know, and I was doing drugs and just living this horrible life. And I cried out one night and I said, Lord, if you are truly the God of the universe, if you're real, then I need my mom to call me and tell me that I can come home and that she will pay for everything for me to come home. At this point, me and my mom weren't on very good terms. I had stolen, I had just ruined relationships, and I was just this really nasty and vile character. And sure enough, the next morning, my mom calls and says, hey, if you want to come back home, I will make sure you have everything you need to come home and we can start over. So this was 2008, and I moved back home with my mom, and what happened was I started going to church. And I went to a church here in Jacksonville and met a man named Shane Camellis, who was the young adults pastor. And I would come into these meetings every Wednesday, completely stoned out of my mind. And I know I smelled just like weed because I was hotboxing before I came in, and not once did this man judge me. And he constantly encouraged me. And so I lived this life in 2008 to 2009. I felt like I was really strong in the Lord, but what I found myself doing is I found myself into a religious mindset, and I started to figure out that I was still having the same struggles that I had before church, and I was still struggling with pornography. I was still struggling with some other things, and I had not really given up the alcohol and, you know, getting drunk on weekends kind of thing, but I had given up drugs. So to me, this was kind of like it was a step forward. But from 2008 to 2009 was really strong, and I feel like there was a foundation there, but I just fell into this religious thing. I met my wife in 2010, we got married in 2012. Throughout our being together, I was still trying to find who I was spiritually. I was still on the grind, I was still struggling. I got married and I was still struggling with the pornography, and I couldn't get away from it. And I was like, this has got to be the most ridiculous life. Here I am, the same hypocrite that I ran away from when I was younger. And I went to this just deep state of depression to where I didn't really care about much. And I was just living a blah life. So struggling with pornography and being married, it just left another thing of issues. And what I hated about it was knowing that I was the very person that I ran away from as a kid. I was that very hypocrite. And so as I struggled, here I am in 2016, ready to give it all up again and say, I don't want to chase this religion anymore. And I was tired of it. I was about to walk away from faith. And then this time I said, Lord, I've prayed before, and I know you answer prayers. I know you're real, but this life I'm living is such a struggle, and I don't know if I can take it anymore. So I asked him, I said, I have to know, how do I live this Bible out? How do I live this gospel out? I'm watching these YouTube videos on healing, and I'm watching the Darren Wilson films, and I'm mad at the church and I'm mad at myself because I'm not seeing this stuff. And so I asked the Lord, you have to show me how to do this, or I'm going to give it all up. What do I do? So the Lord showed me everything that I needed to do in order to walk out this life biblically, and to walk out this life as I was reading it in the Bible. And I thought that it would be some glorious revelation that I would have about the world or about Jesus. And it wasn't that. He pointed out every area of my life that I had never surrendered to Him. And I know that I cannot be fully His if I am holding on to a lot of me. So as He pointed these things out, I wept and I said, Lord, how do I give these things to you? What do I do? And He simply said, surrender. And the next step, He said, in my spirit, I felt it in my spirit, go and get baptized. So I went the very next day. I got baptized. As soon as I came out of the water, it was like an exoskeleton ripped off of my body. And from that day forward, I had never had a single desire for pornography. I have never had a single desire to get drunk, to get high. I had all my rejection issues had been fixed. I had lost everything, and I became fully His. The very next weekend, I walk out into the streets. I had this desire to go and preach the gospel, to pray for people. And the very next weekend, I walk out on the streets and I saw blind eyes open, deaf ears open, people getting out of wheelchairs. And this life began. The life that I'd been reading in the Bible had began. So it has been 4 years now since that day of my baptism. Today is August 1st, 2020. My baptism was in August 1st, 2016. And it has been 4 years of the greatest life I've ever lived. Have there been struggles? Yes. Has life been fantastic? Have I been blessed with prosperity and wealth and health? No, I haven't. But my perspective on life has changed, and my health and my wealth comes from Christ. And I know that I am His, and that there is no more struggle in life at all. So that is my testimony. I have found Jesus in ways that the Bible represents Jesus, and He says, you can live this life too. It just made sense only when I surrendered all to Him. So I want to encourage you, if you have anything that is hindering you, if you're living this life of struggle, if you're living in this religious mindset of, I can't do enough to feel like I am in the will of God, I want to encourage you, pray and just surrender it all, because this life is so worth living. And I may not have the best things in life. I may not have all the money in the world. I may not have the nicest cars, but I have Jesus, and nothing else matters. So I just want to encourage you, pursue Him and just love Him, and watch what He does in your life, and watch your perspective change, because you're looking at Him and not everything else. This is my testimony, and this is what I wear on my shoulder, and this is what I tell people all the time while I'm walking the streets. I let them know that there's hope, that there is love, and that there's forgiveness as long as we repent and surrender it all. God bless you guys.